we take the path, one of the most important things is to understand the point of departure, to understand where we're leaving from. This is pretty important. In the traditional terms, in a classic mode, in terms of Buddhist philosophy, it's called Shilam Chidasum, the base, the path, and the result. They give a lot of importance to understanding the base, which understands where am I, what resources do I have, the result, with these resources, where can I go, and the consequence, what is the path that I can follow to get the result with the resources that I have. Therefore, so let's start with the fundamental point to understand ourselves, because the fundamental resource we have is ourself. The main resource is ourself. Therefore, before leaving on this path, we need to understand ourselves. I would like to quickly do a quick reflection on this. There's some important points. So we are alive, we react with the world around us, which means we're influenced by the environment in which we're in, and we influence the world around us. Not only are we alive, we're also sentient beings. To be sentient means that we don't just have a biological part of our body, that we live and we die. So our body is born and it dies. Inevitably this happens. At the same time, our body has particular rules, how to relate. It's super intelligent, our body. It's incredible, it's crazy to understand the intelligence of our body. For example, I cut my finger and it grows again. How does it regrow the scalp, the skin? There's a form that understands how to regrow. It's not just as any other living being. It's marvelous. From a stone to other things, to more complex things. I don't know if stone has the same process, but whatever. What does this mean? To be a living being, we need to understand that there's a birth and a death. To be a sentient being means I have a body that lives, but as well as the body I have a mind. And the mind, I don't just mean the conceptual aspects of the mind. The mind has many different manifestations of, for example, emotion, the gross mind, the subtle mind, therefore, with various aspects of the mind. What's the difference between a sentient being and a living being? A living being and not sentient being it reacts to the interactions it has with precise rules. For example, a plant changes in relation to its surroundings and also changes and adapts to the environment around it. But it has its own mode of action. We have part of us that is like this, but the fact that we have the mind adds to this. Our way of relating to all that we have contact with. It's not just a biological reaction. We have a part of ourselves where we can choose what we see, what we perceive, what we interact with. And with this mind, we decide whether to go or not go, to do something, to not do something. Apart from having a spontaneous reaction, we have a part of us that creates our own perception of reality. And we relate to the world around us based on this. And then we make our own choices. To be a sentient being, we're humans. One of the main differences, I really don't believe that to be a human being is the best form that's like superior or inferior to other beings. It's enough to see the Buddha's teachings. There's a part called the Jataka Tales, stories of Jataka, where the Buddha talks about his past lives. He talks about his previous life when he was a Bodhisattva and he was on this path towards illumination. Buddha talks about 500 lives. And in these stories he was a Bodhisattva, which is an animal. Therefore, I don't see that we're superior to animals, but the main difference is that we have the characteristics which are pretty unique. But it depends how we use them. But to be human, we have particular characteristics. One of these characteristics is our capacity to look over the past and project to the future. We have the capacity to imagine, an incredible capacity, which allows us to construct amazing things and invent amazing things, etc. We've done many things as humankind. For example, inventions, philosophy, external creations. We've constructed buildings, computers. We've gone to the moon. This is all possible because of our imagination, our capacity to project something that isn't and to gradually create it. Therefore, this is a particular capacity to see the past and to project ourselves into the future. This is a really special capacity. This has been used to do many beautiful things. Also to reach illumination, it's possible because of this. But to be human doesn't mean that we're superior or to other animals, but we have an opportunity, a better opportunity, because other animals and beings don't have this possibility to look into the future, but they just try to live in the moment that they're living. They try to live, but we have the capacity to look to the future. Yeah, which can also create a nightmare. Look at the amount of people that need to take anxiety medication, for example, or how much suffering there is. People look to the past and have anxiety about the future. And a big part of this is to use this characteristic of being human in a bad way. For example, if I project towards the future, because he said this, how's it going to be? But I don't understand my resources, and I do the film of projection. Obviously, I'm going to be bad. An example that I've often give, when I heard a doctor, when he was speaking between difference between a human and animal, he gave the story of a zebra and a lion. He said that if we go to a savanna, if we imagine a savanna and we see a zebra, the zebra's eating, relaxing, but at a certain point a lioness arrives, not the lion. The lioness arrives. What does the zebra think? It has fear. The heart pumps, which makes him run, and the lioness goes after the zebra to eat. At a certain point, something happens, there's a gazelle, the lioness sees a gazelle, and the zebra manages to escape from the lion. And the moment the lioness isn't there anymore, after 5 minutes, the zebra returns to a state of before, relaxed, and just starts eating again. Now let's imagine if we were the zebra. We know that the lion's not there, but we continue to run. We arrive at home and we start to think about the lion. Oh, this happened. Using all the adjectives as possible. Chase me, it tried to eat me. Because the lion is chasing us. It wanted to eat me. We can't eat this because of this. And every time we pass the place where the lion chased us, our heart starts beating. It creates fear. Also, from a physical point of view, when we're detained, our body has a process of adapting. There's different things that the body does to give attention. We have the same mechanism as to quiet. There's many things. There's many things to move our attention, to maintain our attention in our body. However, let's go ahead because I want to arrive at a different point. So we're humans, and we have this characteristic different from animals. It's not that we're not animals, but what I'm trying to say is that to be human, an animal is different. It's important to understand we are animals. Indeed, there's way more similarities than differences between ourselves and animals. We often don't think about this. We grew up with this idea that we're completely different to animals. We're much better, we're much superior. When we see an animal that has a human personified expression, we're surprised. No, it says we're the same as them. Because we are animals, we are part of nature. We're not separated from nature, we're not above nature. We're part of nature. There's a scary amount of similar aspects. If we look at the DNA, for example, it's like high number of decimal points difference in terms of DNA between ourselves and chimpanzees. The point is that we have a different vision of we have this vision of nature that we just use nature for our own means, but we're part of nature. So in this sense, we are animals, based on our characteristics. However, to be human, we have this characteristic to imagine the future and go over the past. So, are we animals that live by ourselves? Or social? We try to be solitary. We all try to stay in our house, in our own house, and don't want people to enter our space. But on our own, we can't do anything in reality. If we tried to stay on our own for a week, how many of us would be able to do it? Not many. To really stay on your own. The thing that I hear the most is about people that feel that they feel on their own. We need to interact with people and be part of a group. From this, to be a human, we live on this planet where there's many different realities. I don't think that I'm speaking just for myself. When I'm generalizing, I don't think that we're superior to anyone else or better than anybody else. What we have, in the same way that we're not superior to an animal, but we have particular conditions. And it depends on how we use these conditions that we have. For example, the body and the typology of our conceptual mind that looks at the past and the future. Similarly, on this planet, there are completely different conditions. It's enough to think of talking about numbers. There's 7 billion people. 2.5 billion of these people live under the level of poverty, which means 2.5 billion people don't know where they're going to find food for that day. They wake up with hunger, go to sleep with hunger, and they don't have the prospects above this. When we don't have the basic needs covered, what is our essential priority? To live, to more that our fundamental necessities are not met, the more energy goes to the basic necessities of life, which is just to live, to not be hungry. So we are free from this situation. It's a scary number of people who have, unfortunately, live in this poor situation. It's tiring to live in this state. I'm pretty sure that the majority of us don't live in this state, you know. There's a huge amount of people that suffer a lot just to stay alive, to live. When somebody's in this state, what's happening here, the energy of the life is consumed by this process of trying to stay alive. Outside of this 2.5 billion poor people, just above this level of poverty, 2.5 billion people don't have this suffering of hunger, but their life is consumed by, for example, work. They have to work 16 hours a day. They have something to eat. But that life is there just to live. Also here, the life is consumed by just trying to live well. This is not just from this epoch, but if we look at previous civilizations, they speak of this when they talk about the 18 characteristics of being born a human, 10 liberties, and they speak about this. There are certain situations, certain conditions that it's not impossible, extremely difficult to follow a interior spiritual path of growth, because the energy, I don't say that it totally goes into this direction, but it's mainly consumed by this trying to live and stay above the poverty. So out of 7 billion people on this planet, that's 5 billion. The other 2 billion that remain, which exists, a large part of this 2 billion, spend their lives being consumed by, trying to have a comfortable life, to avoid suffering and have pleasure. It doesn't have a scope of existing for something, but life just consumes itself. I go to work, I go buy a car to drive to work, I work to pay for the car, I finish work, I go home. I don't want to see any of my family, so I turn on my television, the same programs as always, the same time. Yeah, I smoke something to stop my thoughts. The next day comes, I go back to work. In a certain way, the life exists about living in a comfortable way. But life passes in a way to have desirable objects, avoid aversion, and have pleasurable objects. The life is based on this. Outside of this, there exists a certain possibility for us to have the conditions that are extremely difficult to obtain, which consist of 3 points. To have somebody that guides us correctly on a spiritual path of growth. A different order. The first one is to have the minimum material necessities, so to live is not a problem. Second point, to have somebody that guides us correctly on the spiritual path, that helps us to see the things that we can't see ourselves. And the third point is to want to practice, to want to grow spiritually. These three conditions, they're pretty difficult to obtain. The first, that seems a bit banal, to have the minimum to live above, to live. This is obvious. It's enough to see that out of 7 billion people, 5 billion don't have, maybe also more than 5 billion. But we have. This is already something that's quite special. Doesn't mean that we're better than others. We're not better than the people that are suffering. I have different conditions. I have a different opportunity. But this doesn't mean that I'm better than anyone else. It's enough to put myself in the position of other people and then see what happens. Every now and again, we see in people living in disastrous situations, immigrants, wars, very often these people have a capacity of resilience. They have a capacity to go above. The majority of us don't even have 5% of this resilience or power, force. If I imagine myself in these situations of the people, I'm not better than them. What I'm saying is that I have a very particular condition, very special condition. We're not superior or better than anyone else. We just have a different condition or opportunity. Inside this, the second condition is the thing that guides us. It doesn't necessarily have to be Buddhism or Lama Michel. Yeah, sure, but not just. There's infinite different manifestations and modes of growing spiritually, which means to be guided. We need to be guided because on our own, like we said before, one time there was a scientific research that said that 99% of our thoughts are repetitions of the past. We see what we know. This is the beauty of knowing somebody that knows something that we don't know, because it allows us to see new things. Otherwise we just continue on the same vision of reality. This is why we need somebody that guides us. They can be different from different religions, different methods of religion. There can be in many different ways, but somebody that helps us to open our mind, to see, to have love, to have stability, satisfaction, peace. What do I need to do to grow? We need somebody that can guide us in this process. The 3 points, the third point, it's not just enough to have somebody that guides us, but we need to also want to practice. This last two conditions, how rare are they? How many people that we know in our own world, if we observe, that effectively have a spiritual path, not in a religious sense, because I can be part of a religion and have nearly any spirituality. It doesn't matter if it's Buddhism or another religion, because I can use the methods within a religion just to have a more comfortable life, because I want to have better health, more money. I want to have my objectives met. I want my children to have this. I just stay within this mode of comfortable living. This is when we use spiritual methods for mundane objectives. This doesn't come from just one religion, it can happen in any religion. So how many people instead have the opportunity to see the importance of the spiritual path of growth? There's not many. Because to have somebody that guides you, it's not just an internal condition, external condition. It's something where we recognize that somebody is a guide. It could be an excellent guide, but day and night, if I don't recognize them, they're not a guide to me. Therefore, many of us, we're not ready to see, to recognize somebody that can guide us. It could be somebody that we've already met, or it could be somebody in our lives now, but to have a spiritual guide, to connect with a spiritual guide, this is a condition that we have. I'm generalizing, but obviously I see that we have this condition. I don't think that in Albagnano, the people that are following us here, in general, in our tradition, we have a very favourable condition. It doesn't mean that we're better than anybody else. This means that we have an opportunity, a special opportunity. This special opportunity comes in many different traditions. I don't say that it's only in Buddhism, only in Tibetan Buddhism. I'm just sure that this is a valid method for us, but there are many other possibilities as well. With profound respect for the others, there's a danger for saying, oh, how precious this opportunity is, and then being superior to other people, and then saying that their method's not valid. I'm not entering into this discussion of judging other people, because it's important that people develop love and compassion, however. So we have this opportunity. It's not banal, it's not mundane. However, to have this opportunity does not mean, I'll repeat again, that we're better than others. And we must use it. It's like we said at the beginning, to be human doesn't mean to be an animal. For example, a turtle. We're not better than, or another form of animals, or other beings. We're not better. It means we have an opportunity. We have particular characteristics, but it depends how we use them. Similarly, to have somebody that guides us on a spiritual path won't resolve things for you. It doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else. It just gives you an opportunity. Because it's special. Why is it a special opportunity? Because the objective. Okay. So the main objective of being a human is to avoid suffering, stay away from aversion. And this is the same for all beings. We can find any form of animal or insect, find a being that likes to suffer. I've never seen. Some that are more able to endure pain, but it's not suffering. Nobody wants to suffer. Absolutely no. However, when we reflect, when we analyze, observe, and we look at the Buddha's vision, we can see that the suffering doesn't come from the situation that comes around us, but actually suffering comes from from ourselves, from our actions. The cause of suffering is karma. Karma means action. To change this, to come outside of this, to go into a more profound state of balance, it's not enough just to create favourable conditions, because if it was enough to do that, to be good, we would be all happy already because we've got good conditions. Do we miss anything really in our lives? No, I don't think so. We have everything. If we were just living beings, we'd be super happy. But we're sentient beings. So we have the mind, and we're human beings. So our emotions manifest: fear, attachment, envy, anxiousness, anger, sadness. We all know very well about this. However, therefore, the prime cause of our own suffering is not the conditions that are around us, not just the external and internal, for example, the body or around it, but it's how we live in every moment, our emotions, also the actions that we interrelate around us. So to be human means to observe, to imagine, to project with more awareness. Outside of this, We also have a opportunity to have a spiritual path. But we need to be clear about this before. To have a spiritual path doesn't mean to keep a tradition. Obviously, it's part of the path. It's beautiful. To have a spiritual path means to have an objective that really transcends your own life. But it's not obvious to have this objective. But at least we need to have, the objective is to have an objective. But to have a spiritual path, we need to have an attention of how do I want to be, to have a reference. To have a reference, how to live, how to be, gradually to walk along this path of satisfaction, of balance, of love, of compassion, of wisdom. What's happening is that we have this opportunity. I really don't know why it says. I really don't know why we have. I don't feel better than or superior to others. When I saw the notices, the news, when I saw the war in Palestine, the immigrants in another part of the, when you see people in extreme difficulty around the world, and I ask, what would I do if I was in their situation? I really don't know. The reality is I really don't know. I really don't think that I'm superior to anyone else. Sincerely, I'm not. But I'm convinced that I have fantastic conditions. However, within these conditions, we need to understand, we need to valorize, we need to use this opportunity, this precious opportunity, and not lose it. Because the reality that with these conditions we have, we don't know how long they're going to last. Because when they finish, when we die, they're finished. One of our principal aspects of our reincarnation, we can come back and have the same conditions. It's not something that we have forever. I can protect my conditions so that they can continue in the next life. But it's so. What I would like you to invite you to reflect on the preciousness of our life in terms of the special conditions that we have, and many aspects. There are many aspects that are special. Particularly in Albagnano, we have an amazing opportunity. Many of us have amazing material conditions, and we don't even have to worry about really our material lives. To be able to have the time to dedicate to our spiritual growth. But very often, when we don't have the temple, we don't have the time. We don't know how to direct our time. We're bored. We're tired. Instead, we need to use this. And one of the most important points is to valorize what we have and to understand the preciousness of what we have. Let's do a metaphor. Okay, once I had a diagnosis of my eye. Okay, it's related to... Okay, so he's talking about a disease that he has with his eyes, related to his glasses. When he got this diagnosis, it was in a moment of reflection. Okay, so how am I going to treat my cornea of my eye? So I was researching about this disease in my eye. Then I started to imagine how it would be if I was blind. Not imagining in a far way. But I was actually saying in like how I would actually feel. Then I started to reflect how I would be. Then I realized how special it is that I can open my eyes and see. It's not a stupid thing. Every 6 months I did the exams, and this disease is very stable, or in my case it's like very stable. But first I did the exams before understanding that it was stable. But we're not aware of the obvious things. For example, how beautiful to see. I need to use my eyes well to read, to see the things that can help me in my life. The same with the other parts of the body. Or to walk, to be able to walk. Once I wasn't able to walk without pain, and then when I could walk without pain, it was like, wow, how beautiful. Seems stupid just to be able to walk, but it's not. In the same way in our life we have particularly amazing opportunity, but if we're not aware of it, of the conditions that we have, we're going to lose. We're going to lose ourselves in our small problems. The mind has a base of insatisfaction, and that determines whether something's a lot or not a lot, or so far or close or not enough. The base of our satisfaction or satisfaction, they're not objective characteristics in terms of the reality. It's the value that we attribute on the base of this this comparison. It's beautiful. Oh, it's amazing how this is beautiful. But look at the other one. Therefore, the value that we have depends on the attribution of it. So even if we have amazing conditionals, if we don't attribute value to this and fixate on small things, which can become our universe, we won't be able to put our energy into anything else. Because he said this, she said this, because they did this. Because I need this, and someone else has. We pass a lot of our life worrying ourselves to keep the objects of desire. I want this, I want that. Oh, in my house I want this. No, I want my body to be this. Oh no, because I want this new car. I want this, I want that, or whatever. We're very good at generating new desires. So we pass a huge part of our lives spending our life satisfying our desires, desiring. And we also spend a lot of our life avoiding things that we don't like. So to avoid objects of aversion. For example, this situation I don't like, so I don't want to see this. It's cold, so I don't want to be in the cold. So it's warm, so I don't want to go in a different place so it's not hot. So we spend a lot. So we spend a lot of our lives avoiding that which we have aversion for. The other part of our life that consumes us, to try to go after that which we like. Attachment for people. For example, material things, images, all the things that we're attached to. What's happening here is that in this way we're often, our life's being consumed, and the energy that's left for other things is very small. When I have the object of desire, it doesn't resolve the problem, because the desire remains as always. The unsatisfaction remains even if I have the object. To avoid aversion is impossible, because it remains. To not be separated from objects of attachment is impossible, because it's impermanent. But if we can take part of our energy and direct it and use it to go towards the result, so the base, the path and the result, let's imagine that I have love. This is like a Bodhisattva. We have within our tradition, Mahayana tradition, the image of a Bodhisattva walking towards compassion and love, that lives their life in a direction spiritually to help others, to leave their own suffering. This is our way to follow. This is the example that we need to take. This is the direction. The Bodhisattva is not something really far away. It's something that we can realize. Often I use the term Bodhisattva to be a Bodhisattva is not to be a sacrifice. I'm not a Bodhisattva. I'm as if the Bodhisattva would take all of the pain away from other people, to give a life of sacrifice. Absolutely, it's not this. A Bodhisattva is somebody that lives life with joy, that has a profound love for themselves, that loves other people with joy, that uses their life not to be consumed with their own desires, but to grow, to have more stability and peace, to help others. The Bodhisattva, that within a certain situation does not stay in the problems, but uses that as an instrument for their own growth. The priority is not just themselves, but those around them. Therefore, to conclude, we have amazing, marvelous conditions. This does not mean that we're better or more superior than others, effectively. But we must use these conditions to take advantage and use them the best as we can, because they're particularly special to allow us to grow spiritually, to have more satisfaction, balance, compassion, etc. Therefore, let's reflect on this, let's remind ourselves of this, the preciousness of the opportunity that we have. The conclusion, I want to use my life well. I want to use my life to have love, joy, respect. I want to use this life to avoid anger. I don't have time for this. So we have a direction. The biggest homage that we can give to Rinpoche is to put into practice what he shows. This is the biggest homage that we can give to him. To be an example of what he transmits, to the metaphor of the biggest homage of a plant that can be a flower. So we need to flower ourselves using our own spiritual growth. Therefore, the preciousness of this life and this condition, we need to rejoice of this opportunity and direct ourselves.
Serapten chin namkara trinle chokchur gepa dan losan tempe dreme sasum ki drove munsela tauto ne gyura chi kewa kunto yanda lama dan dralme cheki pela longche chi sadan lamge yente rabzone Dorje change kopa nyur tobe sho chancho semcho rinpoche make panama ke gyurche kepa nyampara me payang kongne konto pelwar sho nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan dele kshin Nintzen takdo delek pe kuncho sumke jingilo Kuncho sumke ngodrubo tsol, Kuncho sumke trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Buona giornata a tutti.